Now it's time to start a discussion about the return keyword or the return statement with functions, because so far in our videos and our discussion more particularly about functions, we saw how we can make functions to do stuff, in our case to display some message in the console, but sometimes you'll want your function to return something like the mathematical result of a calculation. And in that case you need to use the return keyword or the return statement. And to illustrate how we can use the return keyword or the return statement to function, I'm going to create another function up here. So I'm going to type def, and I'm going to push this code down here, and I'm going to type def, the name of the function. The function is going to be called getMax. Next, I'm going to put opening parentheses and closing parentheses, and now I'm going to define two parameters for this function, num1, comma, and num2. Then I'm going to put colon, and now the body of the function, the code that is going to be part of this function. So first I'm going to type here if num1 is greater than num2. So if the parameter num1 and the value that is passed to the parameter num1 is greater than num2, I'm going to put colon and I'm going to return. This is the keyword return. So while I'm typing, you see that you have a suggestion. So the return keyword num1, because num1 is the bigger one. Then if that is not the case, I'm going to press enter. So we go at the start of, so you now are inside the function. So we type here else, so the else part. Then if that is not the case, so if that condition is false, that means that the num2 is bigger. So I'm going to type here return num2. And this logic is okay. So now if I go down here and I type getMax, now while I'm typing, you see that we have a suggestion, and we have the F, which stands for function, and we have as you can see getMax, and we have two parameters num1 and num2. So we need to provide some values for those arguments. So we need to provide some arguments. So I'm going to press enter. Now I'm going to type here 10, the first parameter, and 20 for the second parameter, as you can see by this thing here. Now if you run this code, you'll get in the output hello Alex, hello Maria, hello John. So this is the output from our first function, say hello, but you don't get our number. Why? This is because this function now, if I press shift control P on in this, actually it's not showing, but this function now it's doing the logic of determining which number is bigger, and it returns that number, but you need to capture that number in a variable and then display it in the console. This is why you see nothing in the console. So I'm going to type here max, a variable. We're going to declare another variable. It's going to be equal to getMax, because this function is going to give back the bigger number. And we're going to store that number in the variable max. And then we're going to add a print here to output that number in the console. So now if you run this code, now you'll see correctly the bigger number, which is 20. And you can change, you can try this with different arguments. So if I type here 100, now if you run this, we get 100. So, or we can put here 1000, and now if you run this code, you'll get 1000. So our logic that we define in our getMax function works fine. One important thing to say here is that if you put a line of code after the return keyword, that line of code is going to be unreachable, and that means that it's not going to be executed. So if I put here a print statement and I type something, this can be anything you want, or this can be any line of code you want, but I'm going to put just a print. You can see that this is now in this color, and if you hover over, it says the code is unreachable. So what it's saying in other words is that whatever line of code you put after you returned something from a function, so whatever, so if you are after you add something after the return statement or the return keyword, when you do that, the code is going to be stopped there, and none of the lines of code which come below of the return statement are going to be executed. So this is good to have in mind, because you can use the return statement in a loop. So you can have a while loop, and you saw when we talked about the continue and break keywords, that with the break keyword you can stop the loop. And in the same, in a similar way, or the exact, not actually the exact way, but in a similar way, with the return keyword, if you are in a loop and you return from that loop, and you can just type return without a variable, and here you can put just a return. The code is gonna still be unreachable. And this is how you're gonna see the return keyword actually used when you want to break from a loop. So if you put this return keyword in a loop, that is gonna stop the loop right there, and you're not gonna execute any line of code from that point. So this is good to have this in mind. And this is our discussion about the return statement, and see you in the next video.